Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.
This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Elaine Cha. When a person begins serving a prison sentence, their world gets dramatically smaller. There's separation and isolation from people. Anything personal, be it space, property, time, those basics shrink to bare minimums. And until recently, getting a book or a magazine from a loved one was one thing that could add to that world. A new policy in Missouri prisons, however, has changed that and prompted advocates, family members, and prisoners themselves to raise an outcry. Joining me in studio to talk about it is Michelle Smith, the founder and director of the Missouri Justice Coalition. Michelle, welcome to St. Louis on the Air.
Thank you so much, Elaine. Appreciate being here.
So this change, the news of it, how is it that families and those incarcerated learn about this new policy?
They actually learned about it from people out here. DOC had shared it on their website, and several people saw it, of course. And once their family members called them, they asked, did you know this was happening? And the incarcerated people had no idea for several days, probably a week, that this new change in policy was occurring.
And overall, how were folks feeling about this change?
Well, I will say that families and people who advocate for those incarcerated, we felt very disillusioned. We felt outraged, and we felt like the system is further trying to punish everyone for the actions of a few, including their own internal personnel. And the incarcerated people, several that I have spoken to, felt like they were being punished, but also that the actual issue was not being addressed.
Okay.
This is not. It is about drugs coming into the facilities, but it's so much more. There are issues of people's humanity not being respected. There is so much trauma, so much marginalization in our prisons. The absence of actual mental health care. So the mental health issues in our prisons are so stark, and everything that is actually wrong is not being addressed. But the administration of our Department of Corrections continues to, obfuscate and punish families and those incarcerated.
And this current iteration has to do with these books. So before this policy went into effect, and the old policy was that friends and family were allowed to order books to be sent directly from a, quote, bona fide vendor approved by the state. In addition to this particular policy, what steps did a prisoner or their family or loved ones actually need to take in order to get a book?
Well, it's not something that is easy, and I will, I appreciate you clarifying, because when it first came out, it said that, families sent in books, and that is not accurate. So we, as family and loved ones, were able to order books from, say, Amazon, or Barnes and Noble, or any online bookseller, or things like magazines, Cosmo or Wall Street Journal or any other publication. We will be able to order them, pay for it, and add in the address to our loved one who's incarcerated, and they will send them directly in. And so that was the procedure. As far as like a certified or bona fide vendor list, DOC has none. And that was actually confirmed a few days ago when MacArthur Justice Center sent a request in for this bona fide list, and they confirmed that there was no such thing. It was basically a policy where it had to be a company or, some type of entity that was a publisher, et cetera. And we were able to order the publications, including books, and mail them, have that publication or bookseller mail them in directly. And that's been a policy for many, many years. And actually, I will say from per their email and their newsletter, the policy would change on September 25th, as far as I
Right.
know.
And this new policy is that family, that is, and friends, are prohibited from ordering reading materials from an approved vendor. So that's the step that's farther. And instead, friends and family will need to add funds to a prisoner's account, and the person in prison will then be able to order a book through the Department of Corrections vendor. Is that?
And that is what the administration is saying. And even when you're reading it, it sounds so nice and sounds so simple, but it's truly not.
Yeah.
Ordering anything, being an incarcerated person, there are many, many steps, and it's very difficult.
What are those steps?
So there is something called a green check. And of course, my apologies, but these are terms that most people, don't know. So this is definitely going to be an
Sure.
educational process. But when you are incarcerated, you have your quote unquote inmate account where your money is held within the prison's accounting system. And if you want to order something, and you can, very limited things you can order, first of all. But when you want to order something, you have to wait until your caseworker, and each housing unit has several caseworkers. You wait till they have something called open door, which means you can come back and ask us questions, or get services that we provide. That's normally once a week that they have open door, and also sometimes they don't have open door because if they're on vacation, or if the prison is on lockdown, or any other security reason, etc. I know someone who wasn't able to go see the caseworker about an actual visit from a family member for 3 weeks because the caseworker wasn't there. So you have to wait until open door is actually held, and you go back and talk to the caseworker, and you complete a form to get a green check. So basically, like the prison is writing a check in your name.
Okay.
And you fill out the information and give it to the caseworker. So they send it up to the front office accounting department folks. They make sure you have the money on your account, and they send your caseworker back a check. And it is green. It's like a little green kind of money order type of situation. And the caseworker calls you back. And you sign it, and give her whatever you're ordering. Now, the issue with these books is there is no ordering form. Amazon doesn't have an ordering form. Barnes & Noble does not have one. So if you want to order something, they're approved vendors that they have like little catalogs. It's normally like fiction books or novels, but you don't have a wider range to order from, because the places where you normally would get books from your family, they don't have catalogs. They don't have any way to order.
Okay.
So you go back to the caseworker, you sign for the green check, whatever ordering form you have, you give that to them. They put it in an envelope, stamp it, and they mail it out. This process normally takes at least 2 weeks. And that's being generous to say 2 weeks, right? And then you mail it out, and several weeks later you receive whatever several months later. And when I order a book for my loved one, say from Amazon, I go on my Amazon account, I order it, put in their address, and within 2 days it's sent.
That's
right?
how it was, right?
Yeah. So the process is very cumbersome. It is very lengthy. Nothing in prison is quick, easy. And that's the point, honestly, of prison. It's supposed to be a place where you're supposed to learn patience. And so nothing is as easy as they put on the emails and newsletters that they've sent out.
I'd like to invite you into this conversation. If you or someone you love spent time in prison, what difference did access to books in prison make? What's your reaction to the new policy? Give us a call at 314-382-8255. That's 382-TALK. Or you can send us a tweet at STL on air, or email us at talk@stlpr.org. So before this change with books, and clearly it is a laborious process, and what is changed now is going to add some time. But in so far as time goes, there were other changes made. So in July of 2022, there was another policy change, and it had to do with how folks in prison receive mail.
Correct.
So tell us about that and how it's connected to the the purported reason that books are being treated in the way that they are now?
Well, these are just ratcheting up ways to further control people incarcerated and to further group punish people. And so, in July of 2022, the Missouri Department of Corrections decided that they would stop physical mail from coming into the prisons. And what would happen is your loved one, your friend would write a letter or send a picture to a processing center, which is located in Florida. It's the company that does the tablets. They have tablets now, and they give everybody a tablet. And they send the mail down to Florida. They scan it into a computer, basically a PDF, and they upload the PDF onto that person's tablet. Now, a few issues with that is, number one, scanning things often, especially bulk scanning, doesn't work.
Yes,
so people
we're gonna return to this in just a moment. We need to take a quick break,
All right.
but we'll be back shortly to continue this conversation.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.
Let's return to our conversation with Michelle Smith, the founder and director of the Missouri Justice Coalition. Now, Michelle, before the break, you were talking about the way Missouri has changed how offenders receive mail in prison. They now only receive digital scans of mail, like personal mail. What difference does that make?
It makes such a huge difference on people's morale. So many people lost that personal contact with their families and their children. I was talking about how the mail is scanned, but sometimes scanning doesn't work and it's cut off. And, can imagine getting a little picture from your child and half of it is missing. And so the stoppage of the mail was just the first layer of control because the system is not controlling itself. Mm-hmm. And people were so demoralized and hurt by that last year, and will equally be so with books being stopped this year.
Mm-hmm. We have Kendra calling from Chesterfield. Kendra, welcome to St. Louis on the Air.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that this is a shameful change. I've had a family member in the prison system, and it meant everything to him to be able to receive mail and pictures, and if he needed a book or wanted a book to sort of mentally engage him, he could call home and say, hey, can you get me a poetry book? Can you get me a whatever? And we would order it on Amazon and have it delivered that way. We're hurting these people unnecessarily, and I get that there's a reason that maybe that they're incarcerated, maybe there's things that we don't know, but we don't want to mentally hurt them, and that's what's happening, and it's just truly shameful that this is continuing to happen.
Kendra, thank you so much. Michelle?
Thank you, Kendra. I definitely agree. Prison, they say it's about rehabilitation. Now that's not my words, that's theirs, right? They say it's about rehabilitation and paying for consequences, but when they get out, because over 90% of people do have an out date, that they come home, more responsible, more respectful, and to be contributing citizens in the society. That is not what their actions and their programming and their rules and regulations, that's not what it's leading to. It's leading to more trauma, more people who are hurt and disconnected from their families and not able to educate themselves and expand who they are. Mm-hmm. So their actions are not aligning with their words and what the motive of prison is supposed to be.
Yeah. So Missouri's Department of Corrections seems to have realized that this new policy, which will go into effect again September 25th, that it's caused some serious backlash. In an official clarification published on the department website just yesterday, it said that the department supports reading and makes reading materials readily available. The statement clarified that the change affects the procedures through which offenders in our facilities can obtain books, magazines, and other publications, and it also emphasized there are no new restrictions on the number of books, number or type of books, newspapers, or magazines people in prison can purchase, borrow, access, or read. The statement also noted that offenders can access more than 10,000 books for free on tablets through Project Gutenberg, and that they have access to more than 220,000 books, magazines, newspapers, and other publications in prison libraries. So, Michelle, what is your reaction to this clarification from Missouri's Department of Corrections?
I was incredulous. The statement was it was just several paragraphs of nothingness. And actually, at the end of that statement, they asked for donations of books, and I thought that was especially egregious because when you are incarcerated, you cannot give away your property to anybody. If someone is found in possession of your property, they get in trouble. You can't donate your books to the library in prison. You cannot finish reading a book and take it to the library and say, hey, put this on a shelf for someone else. You cannot do that. You have to either throw it away or mail it home and pay for that. So it's egregious also because library in prison, like I said, the caseworkers, a lot of times they're not open. People need vacation, etc. But sometimes the prisons are locked down. Sometimes something is going on. So that could be several weeks between anybody actually having access to the library. So the statement was a whole bunch of nothingness, and they're not addressing the fact of how the drugs and contraband is actually getting into the prison. And whatever they do to families and incarcerated is not going to stop that because that's an internal issue that DOC will not deal with.
Now, this morning, one of our producers, Danny Wisnatowski, spoke with Sheena Eastburn. Sheena was 17 when she was sentenced to life in prison in Missouri for her role in the murder of her ex-husband in 1992. She was released in 2017 after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that sentencing juveniles to life was cruel and unusual punishment. Sheena said books were a bright spot during her time in prison, even during those decades when she believed she would spend the rest of her life behind bars.
Books for me inside was an added bonus to get more education. I was able to get books that helped me pursue my dream, even though at that time I did not have a release date. It was a way of escape. It was a way to mentally stimulate me and break up the monotony of the prison life. A good book was able to give me just a moment of escape from the war that we lived in every day in prison, because in prison it's like a war zone. You never know what bomb is going to go off that day. And being able to get into a book and just kind of escape all that helps with mental health.
That was Sheena Eastburn, who spent 25 years in prison before her release in 2017. Michelle, what does that bit of audio from Sheena bring up for you?
It reminds me that incarcerated people, they do deserve to become better people, which is the point. I think that like Sheena, and Sheena is an amazing person. I know her personally, and she has, developed into so much of a great person, largely because of books, and we're stopping other people from being able to do that. Not only books about, say, poetry or, a novel, but educational materials. A lot of people have access to educational materials because their family looks this information up, finds it, and sends it in. And again, the prison does not have a way in order to even for them to purchase those things. They just don't have the apparatus to do that. And so I think books are that escape and, your view into another world and to get educated. And with Missouri stopping books and last year stopping mail, there's only one other form of contact that people have is their visits with their family. And I believe next year they're going to stop that because, again, the drug and contraband problem is not on the families or incarcerated people. It's an internal issue, and it's still not getting addressed.
With books in particular, and I wore this shirt today on purpose. It's a Get Lit shirt, and it has books that are open. And what you're talking about as far as the Department of Corrections side is they're afraid that people are going to, get lit because of illicit materials that are sent through. You were incarcerated yourself. You've had that experience. Is that what you were looking for in books? Like, how is it that books helped you when you were serving?
Books were definitely something that I used to educate myself and to, like Sheena said, to escape, the present reality. I think that with our Department of Corrections not addressing the real way that drugs are coming in and to deal with that within their department and continuing to blame people is really just driving people further into states of depression. I spoke to a friend the other day and he said, we don't have a drug problem, we have a mental health problem. There are people in quote unquote treatment programs in Missouri who are also getting access to drugs and overdosing and dying, and they're in treatment programs. So obviously there is something further wrong than just a person being addicted to drugs. There are mental health issues. There's issues of being, traumatized and treated inhumanely every single day, and those things affect you. So, books, and even in those situations, people did escape with books. They do. And now they're being blocked from doing that because the department will not address its own issues. It's egregious.
And do you think this change in policy, there are people out there who hear the word escape in what Sheena shared and what you have also talked about and say that prisoners don't deserve that, even in the form of reading materials. How do you respond to opinions of that kind?
I think that people, sadly, our society, people just want others to be punished, and they truly don't understand that our incarceration system is supposed to punish, but also most people have an out date. So they're coming back to our society. And what type of people do we want coming back to our community? That's really the question. And I don't think those people are looking to that aspect. They're just looking at the right now. So they really need to understand most of these people in prison are coming home, and what are they coming to and how are they coming back?
In this last couple minutes, this new policy goes into effect in a few weeks on September 25th. What are you hearing from families and the people incarcerated as they prepare for this? Are they, stocking up on books before that date?
Well, actually, no, because even now, if I send in a book or, at the point where they do stop the policy, books go through what's called the property department. And so it takes weeks to get books. I ordered my friend books on August the 22nd, and today he will get them. And so it's really difficult to even say, let me send you in some books, hurry up and send them before that date comes, because you probably won't get them anyway. Everything is slow in prison. Everything takes weeks and weeks and weeks.
Michelle Smith is the founder and director of the Missouri Justice Coalition. Thank you, Michelle, for talking with us about the book policy today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
This episode was produced by Danny Wissentowski.
Audio engineering and podcast design by Aaron Dorr.
Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
St. Louis on the Air proudly supports local artists by using music from Life Creative Group.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations, and leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thank you.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.